everyone. Welcome to another This Cycling Live Bytes. Today we have a very special guest of mine, also a fellow comrade on the team and a good mate. I'd like to introduce you all to Dan Jones. Dan, can you give a bit of an introduction to yourself, mate, please?
Well, first of all, I'm a bloody ripping bloke. That's really important in cycling. But no, I worked with Orica GreenEDGE, Mitchelton-SCOTT, whatever they're called now. I worked with them for 6 years, from 2012 to 2017. But before that, I went to film school for a couple of years. And before that, I grew up in the country and bombed out of year 12, but we don't want to go into that. I was a bit of a class clown and didn't apply myself too well. And at one point there, I was actually working at a toothpaste factory and I got sacked because I stuffed up the quantity of toothpaste. I mixed it up for too long and turned out to be a big vat of soup. Cost the company 30 grand. They gave me the lemon and sauce. But anyway, I went into filming and got this opportunity through Jerry Ryan. Pretty much I met him at the Tour de France in 2007. Did Fox Sports News coverage with Scotty McGrory for 4 or 5 years. That's how we got to meet you, Albie. And then, when GreenEDGE started, Jerry basically gave me a blank canvas and said, look, I'm starting this team. You can pretty much do whatever you want. I just want to document it. And after year one, I want to make a documentary. And that was pretty much it. So that was awesome for me, being sort of creative and trying to sort of mix with the riders and show the human side of the sport. Because back then, wasn't a lot of teams that did that. You know, they weren't really doing constant content like they do now. Yeah. We just had amazing time. And we made a documentary at the end of it. But it was a pretty amazing experience in the end.
Yeah, for sure, mate. I mean, those of you who don't know Dan and what Dan has done, he created the Backstage Pass, and I'm sure, you know, a lot of us are aware of. He was the creator of this idea. This for me, Dan, was the first of its kind. Obviously we crossed paths before the GreenEDGE days, like you said, I think it was the Giro in 2009 when you were working with Fox Sports. But
I used to ask real random questions. I remember I asked one about how you went to the toilet off the bike and all this sort of stuff. And you had a ripping story about going into a cap and throwing it to this little fan. He went to put it on his head and got a bit of a shock. But anyway, it's another story.
Rough day. I think it was even a rougher day for the fan. They caught my hat. Anyway, another conversation. But I mean, what you did, mate, like you bought what we were doing inside the teams to reality, right? So the people at home, the punters, really got to find out about our characters as people. What was the guts of a team from the inside. Can you give us a little bit more insight on how you came up with this idea?
So I'd already made 2 feature-length documentaries on the Tour de France. I did one in 2005 and I did one in 2007. So I knew I had a sort of storytelling capability, but I didn't know how long I could turn it around. Like I had to essentially turn these videos around in 24 hours. And knowing how much work goes into it, it was a little bit of, I don't know if I can do this, but I'll have a crack. And early on with the team, I was just doing what everyone else does, post-race interviews, a few shots, of the crowd. And I thought, geez, if I keep chugging along at this rate, it was easy and it was a lot of fun, but I'm not going to have a job at the end of the year because I'm not doing anything different. So it was when I started the Backstage Pass where I said, right, I want to have a crack at doing these mini docos. We started at Torino Adriatico. They won the team time trial, so it was a perfect way to start. And then from there, Milan-San Remo, Guerra wins that. The video goes nuts, and there was a real appetite for it. Yeah. And then the sponsors were loving it. So a lot of the sponsors were going, hey, like Scott Sports and that, can we get more of this? Then I was like, all right, well, we're going to a tour of California. I'll see if I can do 7 days in a row. Let's see if we can pull this off. It was Robbie McEWEN's last year. Yeah. Did that. Was pretty cooked at the end of it. But then I was like, right, I can do the Tour de France. I can do every day on the tour and give this footage to – because that was the other thing. We used to give all the footage to the networks. So they'd be running stuff on NBC, ITV in the UK, all over Europe. So there was a fair bit at the end of the day that the team got out of it. But the biggest thing was the fans. We used to get a lot of people that was part of their routine. They'd wake up in the morning and have their breakfast and watch the videos. But, for me, it wouldn't have worked if you didn't have buy-in. like riders like yourself and the team, they had to trust you. Like if they didn't trust you and what you're doing and thought, geez, I don't know how he's going to use this footage, at least the riders knew that if there was anything that overstepped the mark, 9 times out of 10, I wouldn't run it. There's sometimes I look back in the early days, there's stuff that I've run that I was like, and I almost developed rules as the years went on, like don't ever talk about other teams and other riders, like particularly in car vision, you know, try and cut back on the swearing. Couple of nudity shots slipped in there a few times by accident. But yeah, like it was a bit of trial and error. But as I said, if the riders didn't trust what you're doing, it just wouldn't have worked. And that's something that I had to earn. And once I had it, it's pretty bloody important.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, like you said, mate, it's trial and error, but the response was amazing. You know, I remember being in the team at the time, and this is 2012 we're talking about when it started. You know, thousands and thousands and thousands, not only from our homeland Australia, but all around the world were tuning into these episodes and the Backstage Pass, you know, the concept. And it started to gain a huge amount of momentum. And for you, yourself, mate, you were just one of the boys, right? You were touring around the world with us. And that's the biggest thing that impressed me about yourself, mate. It wasn't for us to be easy ourselves and just be a normal, you know, our normal characters was so natural because of the way you went about your work, mate. You know, as a person, and obviously the way you did your business.
Well, I remember the very first training camp at the AIS, I had to lean on guys that I'd already met before, and you were one of them. And one of the first videos we did was we did a cooking show, Bike Riders Can't Cook, and we had you make Bundy rum balls.
Yeah.
Remember there was a no alcohol policy on the camp at the AIS. So I had to sneak in this little bottle of Bundy, and I reckon you necked half of it before you put it in the bowl. But and then Cookie was running down the main street making sushi with Fumi Beppu, and we're doing music videos. Like you look at some of the stuff we did back then, like it was a lot of fun. But I think it's also important to realise, and Jerry always said it, that cycling as a whole, it's entertainment. That's what it is. Like sport as a whole, it's there to entertain people. And you know, the racing side of them is one part, but what you do off the bike, I think people are realising now that that's just as important. Well, and you can mold that anyway. You can mold it where you bring people close to tears. You can mold it where people get motivated. You know, you can have really, you know, heated battles on the road and sort of confrontation. You can do whatever you want with it, but it's real life. And I think that's what people got when people really got excited and got into it, was just seeing riders like yourself as people. You know, they don't often get to see that because everything nowadays with social media and that has become so sensitized. You know, everyone's got to watch what they say. Like I did a chat with the Yates boys for Mitchelton the other day, and I said to Simon, you know, how important is confidence as a rider? And he said, yeah, but you can't be too confident. You know, I went into the Giro and I said openly, basically how confident he was, and he said I got absolutely ripped for it. Yeah. And I think that's almost a negative with the social media. Is riders and athletes as a whole are becoming a lot more protected, a lot more sheltered, and they don't want to be themselves because you become vulnerable then and you open yourselves up. Hopefully it starts, say when COVID opens up, they're going to have to really revamp everything, you know, from wages, salaries, where the money's being spent. But I think it's going to be really important for people just to take a breath and go, well, what is important? And I think content and, you know, showing these sort of human sides to athletes as a whole, I think that should be right up there in how the sport's covered.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting way to put it, James. I mean, timing could be of the essence, right? This could be a great time to implement these, you know, what you just said into world cycling at the highest level.
The problem is, Albie, is when I first started, none of the organisers took much notice of it. You could get away with anything, you know, Tour de France, film, do whatever you want. Same with the Giro, whatever. As soon as they saw its popularity and it started to get bigger, well, then what do they want to do? They want to monetize it. So then I remember rolling up to the Giro in 2016. The night before the Giro started, they said, sorry, you can't show any race vision, you can't film on the bus, you can't film at the finish line, any of that, because that's deemed our property, and you have to pay, I think they wanted €20,000 from the team to cover their event. And we were like, well, hang on, we're doing the racer service by showing another side, which won't conflict with your telecast. If anything, it'll help it.
Yeah.
And you're wanting to charge us. And they were like, well, Italians, mate, you know, is what it is.
Yeah.
Stiff. If you don't like it, rack off. So I cracked it. That's when I did like recreations of stages with Lego toys and things like that.
Okay.
And they got so peed off about it, they kicked 3 of our videos off the next day from 2 years earlier. Retrospective ones when Wing Dog won a stage, when Bling won a stage, and there was a team time trial one where we won it.
Yeah.
Those 3 on YouTube deleted because of a complaint put in by the Giro. Mafia, mate.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So I think honestly, mate, that this COVID thing, as bad as it is, and you know, a lot of teams might not survive this, particularly if they don't have the tour. This sport, I mean, it needs a complete overhaul, and I think unless they look at a model like F1 or something, which is a more streamlined approach to the season, where it's a lot like all these events have got history, respect that. You got Flanders, you got the Classics, you got the Giros, you got the Tours, but they're all fighting themselves, and it's not good for the teams. They need a streamline. You're under the one banner. So then if they do monetize it, people can get a chop out of a collective TV rights. If you're talking about behind the scenes content, we can do it properly. You know, you can do it as behalf of all the cycling, mix it up with the teams, but you know, there could be a subscription service or something that the teams need to generate some revenue here, because there won't be a sport like we know it if it continues the way it does, you know?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a big issue, right, with the sport for a long time now. And I agree, mate. I definitely think there's some silver linings to be gained, unfortunately, through this pandemic. But I think for the sport itself on a whole, I think there are some silver linings to be obviously noticed, and then hopefully gained some positive things from it for the sport moving forward. Mate, just getting back to the Backstage Pass era, do you have any particular ones that really stood out to you in mind?
Well, I think I mentioned before the Milan San Remo, the 2012 one.
That was the first big one.
First big one, but the Call Me Maybe experience, it wasn't a Backstage Pass, but you were there. Like, that was just surreal. That was the first time a team had done like a lip sync video. Yeah. And I had to leave and go to Canada, but I'd never experienced anything going viral before. That was my first time. And I remember uploading that video at 1 a.m, and literally within 2 minutes, I was on Twitter and I would refresh and there'd be 30 comments on it. I'd read them all, refresh, there'd be 100 comments. Read them all, refresh, there'd be 400 comments. And this went on. I didn't go to sleep. Yeah. And then when I heard it was leading the coverage of the Vuelta, then it was on the front page of the free paper in Madrid. Yeah. I was just like, what the hell? So then that gave me an appetite to do it again with the AC/DC clip at the tour. And then when we released that on the rest day, because then I could plan it, then I could go, right, if I was to ever release a music video, what would be the best time to do it? First rest day of the Tour de France. Genius. Boom. I didn't expect that they'd have the yellow jersey and have all this success before and to validate those decisions. Because Bannon said to me, he goes, mate, if we had an average tour, there's no way you're going to release that music video. I'm thinking, mate, I put 6 months of work into it. I was always going to release it, get stuff. But when we were on the rest day and we had the boss of the Tour de France there, he was meeting all the Christian Prudhomme, meeting all the team and representatives and that. Yeah. Bannon said to him, he goes, Christian, we've got a music video we want to show you. He goes, no, I've already seen it. My daughter called me first thing in the morning and said, Dad, you have to watch this. I've watched it. It's hilarious. Well done. So I'm riding this massive high, and we were mentioned on Twitter 8 times more than any other team at the tour. This is in front of Sky and all that. We've gone nuts, you know, waving our hands, going, right, job done. Let's enjoy the rest of the month. Next day, we get an email from AC/DC's management going, oh, we're just wondering, where did you get permission to use this song? I remember Brian Nygaard going, dude, I told you, you know, this was a bad idea. And I said, hang on, you were patting me back yesterday trying to take credit for it, and now you throw me under the bus because Akadaka kicked stink. So we went back and said, listen, sorry, we didn't try and monetize this. It's just a tribute. There's no one getting hurt here. But they didn't like the fact that we had sponsorship all over our jerseys, and they knew there was some sort of kickback from it. Anyway, they said to us, okay, we'll do a deal, $500, and we'll give you a retrospective license for 12 months. How does that sound? We're like, really good, no worries. Get to the end of the tour, and they said, listen, there's a company in America that offered us a couple of $100,000 for the rights to that song, and we knocked them back, and they want to see the contract with you guys as to what they paid or whatever, and it's caused all this big shit for. I reckon potentially one of the band members might have seen it and said, hey, I don't want to be linked with these dudes in Lycra. Scrap it. So that was definitely a standout. And then, you know, obviously the emotional backstage, like when Esteban burst on the scene and what he did at the 2015 Vuelta, and particularly the video at the end where he's hugging Steve-O, and the real tearjerker stuff's great to watch, I reckon. Like that's the stuff that really hits people, because, you know, his story, most people know, is pretty inspirational. And yeah, they're probably the standouts, mate.
That's what I really admire about you, James. You have this like magic dust, mate. You can sprinkle over different situations, you know, like you said, like a really successful moment to a really emotional moment. One that really comes to mind that you made a really positive thing of was the day the bus went under the archway at the finish of the Tour de France.
Oh, yeah.
Such a negative situation. That got turned into obviously a positive through your work.
I reckon live, I've never shit myself more than when that bus hit the gantry, because I was 20 metres away and Jerry Ryan was standing next to me and the bus was coming up the finish. And I remember saying to him, mate, that's, when you think about it, that's pretty good publicity. Like the finish is, 20 minutes away and you've got all that, oh, what? And then it's just hit it. And Jerry, his first reaction was he laughed. And I wasn't laughing because the whole thing almost fell on the crowd, the whole finish line.
Yeah.
And then when he was stuck there, I just remember feeling sick and thinking, geez, this could be an absolute Betty Crocker here. Like our team has literally shut down the world's biggest bike race on day one. And then when we got out of it, the stories after that were hilarious.
What, 6-7K away or something?
They were literally 15 minutes behind them, and then they scrambled, and apparently Matt Keenan was commentating, and he was he could hear Christian Prudhomme swearing at his staff and throwing his hands everywhere because they had to move the finish line to where there was official timing, which was 3K to go, which was at a roundabout. So if they were sprinting into a roundabout, I mean, there just would have been pile-ups, carnage. So that was on the cards, and literally a local yelled out, let the tyres out. Let the tyres down. And they, okay. So they let the tyres down, that dropped the height, and then they got out that way. But Gary, the bus driver at the time, he was shattered. And apparently I wasn't there for dinner, but he had his hands in his head and he was bawling his eyes out pretty much all afternoon. And Jerry said, geez, I told you to park it close to the finish. I didn't mean on the finish. and then he said, mate. He goes, you've got no idea the amount of money you've generated for this team. That will be everywhere. And he was bang on. They actually valued it $60 million in advertising for Orica globally. It was on the back page of the New York Times, and they got a $1,200 Swiss franc fine. So I think there was money well spent. Unbelievable.
Mate, a couple of ones that stood out for me that I wasn't a part of the team at the time and we were working together in such was obviously what we've touched on before, the Esteban Chavez, introduction into the world cycling scene, basically. Do you want to give us a little bit more about that, how that all come about, and obviously the popularity it generated back home in his country in Colombia?
So when Esteban first joined the team, I thought he looked like he was 12 years old. Like he had the braces on. He's this little cute little kid. And I remember we had a training camp in Australia, and it was the first time I met him, and we were playing cricket out on the tennis courts. I said, "Go on, little Colombian mate, go and have a bowl." He went to have a bowl, and and his arm just sort of flopped it over.
Yeah.
We all just started pissing ourselves, like, geez, mate, frog in a blender. And then they're like, no, mate, I think he had a pretty serious crash. Like, I don't think his arm's any good. Yeah. At one point there, like, he was told by doctors that one of the options was to cut his arm off.
Yeah.
It was that bad. Like, he had no feeling, couldn't move it. Like, obviously from talking to Steve-O. But so I got to know him pretty well, and he's just a ripping nice guy.
Yeah.
And he couldn't speak much English early days, so we'd only communicate just by yelling at each other, like, "Hey, Pacos!"
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how it started. Tupac is Dos Pacos. I just started calling him Dos Pacos, and he'd call me Biggie Smalls. We don't even like rap. Anyway, we're just having these laughs and just getting along like a house on fire. And then that year we did the Giro together. And some of the content, pairing Esteban and the Ween Dog off, and they were arguing about Mother's Day, and it was just a lot of fun. And then when he got to the Vuelta, he rolled up and he just looked lean. And I'd heard Steve-O had a bit of kicked him up the arse, when that blood flows into the vein. And this guy's, he's taking the piss a bit here. Might need to give him a rev up. Yeah. So anyway, Steve-O's got into him and he's dropped all these kilos. So he's rolled up the Vuelta, and I thought, shit, he could be a chance here for a couple of stages or whatever. And then I'd never seen anything like it. The crowd at that bus when he took the leader's jersey and pinched a couple of stage wins, just pandemonium. It was awesome. It was like finally the team's broken through to like a rock star status, because you'd always see Sky and all these sort of teams booning with Quick Step.
Yep.
They got crowds and crowds. We'd have a couple of Aussies with their flag. Hey, God, you got a bottle.
Whereas thousands around the bus.
Yeah, whereas thousands, and they're so passionate, the Colombians. So we just embraced it, and the content was great because Esteban also is smart.
Yeah.
He knows to play the game. He knows, hey, I've got the rider perception, but also off the bike, I've got to look after that. And he's always got a smile on. Not saying that that's not what he likes. I mean, he's a ripping bloke, but he also can play the game. Whereas I think some riders struggle with that, the balance, particularly nowadays, because there's a lot more expectation that you have to deliver more of a profile off the bike because of the demand from sponsors and all this sort of stuff, and the easy access with your mobile phone. And I think a lot of riders are struggling with that, because it's like, well, no, you pay me to ride a push bike and I'll deliver that and I'll get you the results, and that should be enough.
Yeah.
But they don't understand that, okay, like if I was Shane Bannon, general manager, I'd go, all right, new deal. I'll do a contract that says if you just want to do the riding stuff, here it is, but I'll pay you 20% of what you probably should be getting. And if they arc up, I say, well, hang on, where are we getting our revenue from? We're getting it from sponsors. Where are we going to get that from? It's from media interviews, from seeing you. If you're part of the peloton and you're that little dot, we're not going to get the results. And another thing is, people always, in cycling, they always go, oh, well, if you get wins, it means that you're going to get sponsors. The GreenEDGE won four stages of the Tour de France last year. They're off the charts.
Yeah.
And they don't have a sponsor this year. Or they haven't had a sponsor diving in saying, yeah, sign us up. So success doesn't necessarily guarantee you this sort of cream at the end of on the top of the cake either, because you've got to fight on how you sell the sizzle, and you've got to get the right people in. And
Maybe
Sky have got that.
Yeah. Maybe this is a very interesting topic, mate. Maybe that was the case 15 years ago, but times have changed.
Yeah.
It's not only that generates funding and sponsors. It's all this other stuff, like you mentioned.
Exactly. And, I remember that someone told me of a really good quote that sums it up, and it was an actor. And the actor said, I love to act, but I hate the press publicity tour I've got to do. I've got to travel all around the world, do the same bloody questions or whatever. So to get around it, I mentally go, I am paid to do the publicity stuff and I act for free.
Yeah.
And then that way I can sort of make sense of this whole thing. So if you're a cyclist that doesn't like the media, look at it as your contract. You're paid to do the media and you ride for free because you love it.
Yeah.
Do what you love. That's probably the best way of mentally getting through it.
Yeah.
So I don't envy at times the role of the media manager, because, someone like Taryn for GreenEDGE, they're constantly having to deal with riders going, I have to talk to them. back to what I was saying earlier. I've chatted with the Yates boys. Simon Yates made a really good point. He said, there's no other sport where I'm at max heart rate and 5 seconds after crossing the finish line, someone's got a bloody microphone in my mouth. He goes, could you imagine Cristiano Ronaldo hitting the crossbar to win the game and then walking off and sticking a mic in and going, hey, give us a quote. You tell them to get effed.
Yeah.
But cycling, that's what you got to deal with. It's part of the game.
The other one, mate, that I really enjoyed was, obviously a good mate of both of ours is, and the top bloke as well, like Esteban, was Mathew Hayman with the Paris-Roubaix win. That was, that for me, that was, I was in tears, buddy. I still watch it now and get a bit emotional.
Yeah.
How was it to be there?
That's probably the one. I think, like I mentioned a few of them earlier, but I'd say the Roubaix video is the one that it's just everything you look for to tell a story, I think, because the backstory to that day is the night before when we were at the hotel, I remember saying to Matty, all the word was he's broken his arm, he's out of the classics, and everyone for weeks was like, poor bastard, that would have been his last real crack at it, and now he's not going to have a chance, because everyone knew what the race meant to him. And then when he got a start, I remember saying to him the night before at his bed, I go, hey mate, geez, you got a start for tomorrow, that's bloody good. Like, he's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm like, yeah, but how's your arm? Like, do you reckon you'll get to the finish line? Or just talking to him like he's just got no hope in hell. He's like, no, I'm feeling good. It was like sort of laughed it off. Anyway, do the interview, like he leads off the Backstage Pass and he gives these quotes, and you're doing it pretty much thinking, oh well, he's the most experienced, and you're not thinking that he's going to win it. And then we went to the finish line, and my old man was there, my mum was there, my wife was there, and we went to the finish line. Dad's out in the car, giving him a GoPro. Amy, just film as much as you can. We go to the finish line, we're having lunch, and it's on the screen, and Hayman's in the break, and Mum's going, ooh, Matty's in the break, he might be a chance. I'm like, Mum, pipe down. You don't know anything about cycling. He's broken his arm. This is for TV. This is Matty Hayman's sort of parade lap. You'll get through Arenberg, and you'll go, I was there for a fair bit of the race, but no one expected him to keep lasting. So this was 100k to go. So then, as it's getting closer, it's like 30k to go. He's still there, and he's looking good. And I'm starting to go, holy, that's when your heart starts going. You start going, shit, he's a chance here, but he's still with some hitters. So then I go down to the velodrome, and I'm there with Shane Bannon, and they only have a limited amount of people that are let into the middle of the velodrome. They looked at Bannon's pass. Yeah, in you go, Shane. They look at my pass. They go, sorry, sir, you don't have the right credentials. You can't come in. Bannon looks at me and he goes, no, mate, you take my pass. You go in and you get some footage, get some good footage. I said, you sure? He said, yeah, you're right, mate. Shane pats you on the back, takes my pass off, he goes.
And being the manager of the team for everyone that doesn't know.
Yeah, so I'm in the middle talking to Nygaard, and the announcer, this is just as Hayman gets spat off the back, and then the announcer goes, all right, who's going to win? Is it Tom Bullen? And everyone's going, yeah. Ian Stanner, yeah. Anyway, rattles off all the four guys. Don't mention Hayman, because he's been piped, and they're thinking, oh, he's gone.
Oh, really?
He gets back on. Yeah, he gets back on, and suddenly I'm looking at Nygaard going, mate, I don't know what to do. I'm just shaking here. So then you start getting to, I almost psych myself up for these big ones with the camera. I'm like, right, when he comes around the corner, I'm going to just get a kick-ass slow-mo shot of him coming in. But I've got two lenses, I've got the big lens for that, and I've got the little lens for the other stuff. Yeah. So as he comes into the velodrome, bang, get the shot. As it's sort of exporting, because there's a bit of a time delay, I'm clicking lenses off, get the little one in, and I'm trying to keep an eye on what's going on. And then when he leads out the sprint, I'm thinking, he's still just going to come over the top here. And then when he wins it, as you saw in the video, I just completely lost me shit. And then, all the hoorah. And in that moment, you don't know what to say to the guy, because you know what this means. And you can see in the video, he just doesn't know what's going on. Yeah. And then after it all sort of calmed down, we go back to the bus, and everyone's hugging each other. Everyone's been crying. It's unlike scenes I'd ever seen before outside of, like when they first won the jersey at the tour. But this was just something else, because of it's for this guy, this guy that you'll never get that chance again. And then I see Bannon, and I said to Bannon, oh, mate, how good was that? He said, yeah, bit bittersweet, Dad, I'll be honest. I go, what do you mean? He goes, mate, I don't know if you know, but like Matty, my dream was to be the general manager of a team that won the Roubaix and to be the first guy there to hug that rider. And you took that away from me. But anyway, good on you, mate. No worries. So when they were doing the presentation before that, I had Bannon's pass on, and all the dignitaries from ASO were walking around, and they see me and they read my pass, and they thought I was the general manager of the team. So I'm getting photos with all these guys in suits and shaking hands, and they go, "Oh, you must be so proud." I go, "Oh yeah, it was a really good sighting. I'm very glad that brought him across."
Oh, fantastic! That's awesome.
So,
I remember straight after the finish line, everyone's sort of a little bit standing off Matty a bit, and all you can hear is your voice. You did it, mate.
Yeah, it's not a dream, mate. This is real.
Yeah, you did it. And then like the penny drops, and he just that emotion is. Oh, mate.
You can't script it, mate. You cannot script it.
Well, that's the beauty.
And then,
that's the beauty of what you do, mate. Like you can't script it.
Well, that's why we made the documentary All for One on that whole 5 years of the team, and I went to Madman in Melbourne, and I had this is at the end of 2015, and I had pretty much an hour 20 of the doco in my head cut, ready to go. I said to him, listen, I've got the story done. The only thing I don't have for the film is the ending, which we'll just pluck something out of 2016. I said, for sure, something's going to happen in 2016. I don't know what it is. And sure enough, Mathew Hayman tied it all together. So it was perfect. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit, mate, to finish off with about what you just mentioned, the documentary All for One that you designed and orchestrated. How did that come about?
So, as I mentioned earlier, Jerry wanted to make a documentary on the team after the first year. And I remember getting to the end of the first year, I said to Jerry, listen, mate, I'm not going anywhere. Why don't we just wait and build a story? It's a lot easier to cut footage when you've got more options than to sort of scramble and stretch stuff out, which you see with a lot of films that just cover the Tour de France and want to do an hour and a half on that. It's so difficult because you're going to have periods where you're like, oh, geez, nothing really happened from stage 13 to 15 or whatever. So I got to the end of 2015. That's when Esteban come on the scene. And I thought, geez, I know his backstory. I know his crash. I reckon we've got enough here to start putting a story together. And I had probably 3,500 hours of footage. So I went to Madman and said,
the team creation in 2012
till 2015, till the end of 2015.
Yeah.
And I had footage from everything, from before they pushed the pedal and the training camps and all that stuff, and sit down interviews to all the race stuff. I knew I was so fortunate that I could literally, and this is what I did, is I drew up a graph and I did like a up and down roller coaster. And I said, right, I want people to be laughing. I want them to be crying. I want them to be laughing again. I just want them to keep them guessing. And the process, so I sat down with Madman, who were the industry leaders in Melbourne. They'd done heaps of major docos before, and said to them, listen, I've got all this footage. I can do the story, let's go for it. So they paired me up with Marcus Cobbledick, who it's an amazing last name because Hayman won over Cobbles. And so he done a cycling film before, and he paired up with me and helped with the filming, because I said, look, I'm still contracted with the team. I'm going to be busy doing backstages, so I'll need help with the sit-down interview side of it. And it's good having an extra set of hands as well, and to bounce off creative ideas. So we went through 16 drafts of that film to get it to where it was, like literally trying to find the right balance. And, I wanted to be transparent as well. So in 2012, Whitey left the team with the whole Armstrong stuff. I put that in the film, but it completely ruined the film because I didn't want to do what everyone else does, and that is make another film about cycling, about doping, because this wasn't a story about any of that sort of shit. This was a story about a group of guys coming together, and what you extract out of it is Hayman's story, which is never give up. No matter what the odds are, there's always a chance, and just keep fighting. As he says, always keep riding. Yeah. Esteban is same thing as well. 9 out of 10 doctors said, you're never going to race again. Well, go get another opinion. Don't settle. Like, I
Yeah.
reckon most people, 99.9% of people, after doctor number 8
Yeah.
would have said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm finished. I'm not going to do it. Well, bloody pick yourself up and keep going.
There's the message. Yeah.
And then there's stories of believe in others. You know, if you are in a fortunate position like a Jerry Ryan, you know, he had a vision and he had the ability to create a culture from the start. And the culture was built on mateship, hard work, you know, all for one, like digging in for each other. And the response to that film was unbelievable because, one, it won the best documentary at the Melbourne Film Festival, which there was 69 feature documentaries at that from all over the world. So that was pretty humbling, but it's more the reactions from people from that don't know anything about cycling. So that's the key with all the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
The key has always been, always go for your hardest market, which is, for me, my sister and my mum that know nothing about cycling. If I'm going to make a video that they can watch and enjoy, I've done my job, because it'll expand the growth of the sport and anyone can follow it and enjoy it. As you know, with me, I was never driven by the mechanics of the sport. I didn't care about gear ratios or chain rings or frame you run it, or like where you're going to go in the sprint. I just didn't care about any of that. All I cared is, who are you as a person? What makes you tick? And what can I extract out of your story and your journey day by day that anyone can relate to? And that's it. And that's what a lot of people are doing now with the whole humanizing sport. It's always going to win. That formula is always going to be successful. So yeah, I think that was the key with all that. And the All for One doco is I look back now, is a really good legacy. You know, when I left the team, that film just come out, and it felt like, for me, the best way to sort of tie the bow on that sort of chapter. So
yeah, awesome, mate. That's you know, we've gone on for a bit now, and you know, I mean, it's, for people who don't know you, it's been an absolute pleasure, Dan, or Jonesy,
great chat, mate.
To have you, you know, on my side as a work colleague and also as a mate. What you've done has been inspirational to everyone. I think you just put the icing on the cake. Just saying what you mentioned about, you're not only talking about, or your work isn't dedicated to the cycling orientated viewer. It's to everyone, you know, and you've definitely done that, mate, with your work. So thank you for your time, mate, on this cycling life. It's been an absolute pleasure to cross paths with you again, mate.
Appreciate you having me on it, mate. All the best.
Thanks, Dan. And if you guys, if you give us a thumbs up on this Cycling Life YouTube channel, there'll be more content up there every day. My Cycling co-host, Michael and Jamie Anderson, are updating their own videos. So tune in and see you later.